Alright, so I'm making this video about people who are being gang stalked and they're being considered mentally ill or crazy or drug addicts or whatever. Okay, first things first. Um, there's a lot of accounts of people being gang stalked. One of the first accounts was in East. Some of the first accounts of what modern day gang stalking is started by the Stasi in Eastern Eastern Europe and East Germany, East Berlin during the Cold War. Now, the Stasi um, couldn't keep putting mass amounts of people in prison in the 70s like they could do in the World War II era. So what they did was they developed something called Zersetzen, which means decomposition, and this is about alienating people from their family, their friends, um, basically uh, um, just cornering them in every way imaginable while they're still in society. Okay, it's like putting them in prison in a penitentiary without having to actually incarcerate them. And this is like serious psychological warfare, uh, very spiritually dark stuff. And family members would be used, friends would be used, the police would be used, and everything this individual did would be monitored. Their phone calls, their trash would be gone through, their mail would be looked through, and there's files. All you have to do is Google Stasi and Google Zersetzen, and you can find out pretty much a lot of information about it. There's a lot of actual files from the Cold War that have been opened up about this. Books have been written, and so these are actual real accounts. And when somebody is in America and this is happening to them, the modern day gang stalking is happening to them, a lot of these people don't realize that there is something that happened in Europe called Zersetzen that's extremely similar to the gang stalking that's happened in America in today's world. So when it comes time to talk about this sort of stuff and to show their family and friends information, they don't know what to give to them. And so people are going to say, oh, you're crazy. You don't know what you're talking about. We're concerned about you. We have to take you away to a mental health place. See what I'm saying? And then there's Scientology stalking, which I mentioned in one of my other videos. A journalist named Paulita Cooper wrote an article about Scientology in the 70s, and she was harassed and stalked viciously and severely, and 8 people were arrested by the FBI and they went to federal prison. Okay, so Scientology stalking was a little bit different in the 70s than it is now, but people are still joining Scientology and still being gang stalked and harassed by Scientologists. And they do sort of the same thing, street theater, people that you know following you around, mimicking you, the same sort of thing. So the people at community mental health, they're not criminal investigators. They're not trained to recognize actual criminal act being committed in the format of group stalking. They have questions that they want to ask you and paperwork that they need to fill out. Does this person believe they're being followed? Does this person believe there's a government conspiracy against them? And they're not taking this information and communicating with criminal investigators to find out if this in fact is happening. They're jumping to, oh, you need medication. Oh, we have to take you in and interview you. You know, we're concerned. So, like, they're taking people who are victims of some vicious, sick stalking protocol, group stalking, and then they're putting them on medication to drug them out. Like, they need to be, these people that are doing this type of stuff at community mental health, some of them know exactly what's going on because I talked to somebody who was being gang stalked, and his neighbor worked at community mental health, and his neighbor was doing it to him. You see what I'm saying? And then some people will say, well, they might not really know they're gang stalking somebody. Well, they should they should know what they're involved in. You know what I mean? It doesn't make sense that, especially in my scenario, that somebody should be followed around by large numbers of people every day with their brights on in broad daylight, wearing certain colors and stuff like that. And the person's on YouTube, like I was in my case, telling everybody about what's happening. And nobody seems to be able to have any control to do anything to stop it. Um, no one does anything at all. And so I was actually committed against my will. Um, I went on a long walk, and the people in my neighborhood that were harassing me, they followed me off and on the whole way. And the police pulled me over, and they wanted to drive me home. I didn't want to go with them, so they called the ambulance. And the ambulance workers actually called community mental health. And my mother signed me in involuntarily. Now that was very stupid on her part, and I'm still angry at her about all that. And I was forced to have to go into a community mental health environment against my will because I was being harassed and I was being stalked. I was the victim of covert and overt stalking harassment. But I'm supposed to go to a mental institution because I'm a victim of harassment? That didn't make any fucking sense. And then when I was framed, I sat in jail for a year writing the FBI. And I even wrote the president, the vice president, and the governor, and the lieutenant governor. And I wrote colleges and churches and all this stuff. And I had one of the biggest presence online talking about this. And I passed out flyers everywhere, and dozens of individuals were involved in the harassment I went through. So it just doesn't make sense to me that there's such large numbers of people on YouTube in this country that are all saying the exact same thing. Like, this isn't an instance of different people online saying they're being followed around. This is an instance of thousands of people coming online and saying that they're being followed around and they're being gaslighted, cars with their brights on in broad daylight, color coding is being used, street theater is being used, noise campaigns, covert drugging. Like, they're experiencing and expressing the same exact things, and none of these people know each other. How does it make sense that there's a mental illness that exists that makes people see the same exact identical things? Not just in America, but there's people all over the world saying the same exact stuff, and they're filming the same exact stuff. So that doesn't make any fucking sense. That there's a mental illness. That's never happened in history, that there was a mental illness. Like, if these people were all mentally delusional, one person would be saying they're Jesus, another person would be saying they're Hercules. None of it would make sense. None of it would be the exact same identical details. So, I know I was stalked and harassed and framed for a crime I didn't commit. And, I still talk to people who are being stalked and harassed and framed. And, it's just fucking crazy. It doesn't make any sense. So, if you're one of those people who are being gang stalked, hit me up, leave me a comment, or send me an email or something.